back from the break, and this is Grand Bahama Today. I'm your host, Fred Stirrup, and I'm privileged, as I said before, to have Leslie Miller as my guest. Of course, his background makes him a perfect fit to talk about the Industrial Center and so many other things that we need to happen in Grand Bahama, particularly as it pertains to energy and the revitalization of the economy in Grand Bahama. Leslie, we were talking before the break about the Industrial Center.
Yes.
And you talk about your disappointment with the closing of several of the...
Yeah, including Bahama Cement, it closed, what, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
A subsidiary of U.S. Steel.
Let's talk about a revival of the Industrial Center. What will it take to do that?
It's going to take the government itself to put the proper team together. Okay? Instead of putting these down people that got no experience, and it bothers me, in these areas that they're lost. They don't have an inkling of an insight as to what the industry is all about. Because you bring these guys out of these areas, banking, and what have you, they've never had that experience. In insurance, no experience at all. And you put them in these areas, they don't know what's going on. And when they meet with these investors and they look at the background, look at the resume, you could run any game on them. The Grand Bahama Port Authority, again, needs to get some injection of men and women to sit on their boards, and men and women to be in the Port Authority that has that experience, that has the expertise to go on a track and sit with investors all around the world, in Europe, in China, and elsewhere, Vietnam and every place else. I think it's going to take a savvy investor, a multi-billionaire, a maverick, like how Sir Edward St. George was, like how Wallace Groves, God bless him, was when he decided that he could make this oasis in the Bahamas called Freeport. It's going to take that sort of mentality to say, listen, man, there's an opening here. This place has every infrastructure that we need. It is the closest point to the eastern seaboard of the United States, South Central America, and the Caribbean. We'd invest $1 billion, maybe $2–3 billion. You got arable land, excess amount of water, good roadways. The airport is going to be reconstructed. These are the things that you now need people with a vision. You need visionaries. But you got to get those visionaries from different parts of the world, because you got so many different sectors in Freeport that can harmonize with each other to make it happen. It happened before. We can do it again.
I do support your position of networking with your portfolio. Edward St. George, Albert Miller, Sir Jack to a great extent.
We can do it again.
Wallace Grove. They were able to really connect with the people.
Yes, and they were men of vision.
The people felt that they were a part of them. They felt really connected to them, much like how Sir Lyndon was for 25 years with the people of the Bahamas, Hubert Ingram was in his 3 terms, and Perry in his 2 terms. There has to be that connectivity. And I think if it's one area that the present stakeholders at the Port Authority are lacking, and they need to try to recapture that, it's that area to connect with the people.
Let us look at the industrial sector in Freeport now, with the closure of all those entities that had hired so many behemoths. The buildings are still sitting there. That's where you got to track investment and say, listen, that is the building you can occupy. The next building you can occupy at very reasonable rates to enable the resurgence, the re-energization of Freeport. But you have to go down the track. You have to have a team. You know, I haven't seen an investment brochure that we used to do with Grand Bahama, the Grand Bahama Port Authority in about 20 years. Our first brochure was done by James Smith, Henry McCarthy, and myself. The first brochures this country had for New Providence was done in we did those brochures in 1975. And the Grand Bahama Port Authority always had these massive, beautiful investment brochures. You don't see that anymore. You can't give an investor something in his hand to say, listen, this is what Bahamas is all about. These are our laws, obligations, this is what we offer. The country, we can compete with any country in the world.
Do you think over time there's been a downsizing of the government's hands-on interest in Grand Bahama?
No, I think what has happened is that, again, with the absence of Sir Edward and the team that he put together, that void has not been filled. Edward, the Bahamian content that he had there, were people who had to have it all to make things happen. You need to, you have young Bahamians that has good minds. You need to look for them in the United States and around the world to put this Herculean effort together and make it work. It could work. There's no reason why it shouldn't be working. Because Freeport is the perfect place for investment, especially industrial investment in pharmaceuticals and the like. You can't go any place better than Freeport with the incentives that are offered. The infrastructure is there to facilitate you. Put the team together. The Prime Minister has that obligation. The Freeport Port Authority has the same obligation. That's why they got to work in tandem with each other. But you can't put rookies in these areas with no experience or expertise.
Talking about working together, Carnival Cruise Line, which will be bringing the cruise port into into East Grand Bahama. It used to be at Chaprock Point. It's now called Celebration Key. They put out a statement recently. We are working very closely with the government of the Bahamas and the Grand Bahama Port Authority to ensure that we are highlighting the best of Grand Bahama and its culture, combined with fun like only Carnival can provide. This is what we are talking about, Leslie. All entities working together.
You know, initially Freeport was not built, conceived as a touristic entity, as you are aware. But they came in. Look at all the hotels in Freeport.
They came in.
That's now dilapidated and really an eyesore for everyone. Look at the hotel where Harvard Hughes stayed. That's one name.
Yeah, for years.
Grand Bahama. Look at the hotel right downtown. Look at, that's dilapidated now. The big hotel. That's finished.
You mean Lukaya?
Abandoned.
Lukaya?
Lukaya. All of these places need to be demolished.
Well, the Lighthouse Point is still operating. That's a part of Lukaya. But I do take your point. But what needs to happen in Grand Bahama is we don't need the issues. We don't need the issues.
You need teamwork.
Yes, teamwork.
That's what you need.
And that's what needs to happen.
You need teamwork.
And I just would like to implore the government entities that are responsible for dealing with Grand Bahama to just be more diplomatic. I think that would be that's the course to get on. Now, you know, we talk a little about the tourism aspect of Grand Bahama, and I agree with you. This was not in Wallace Grove initial plan.
No,
this was not a priority for him.
City.
But it became a tourism.
It
became a tourism mecca.
Yes, it did.
And at that time, when this happened, working together is exactly what was happening because the tourism department in Grand Bahama was incredibly vibrant. A lot of money, a lot of money was put into tourism for Grand Bahama, and things just flowed. We became magical.
Horace Bullitt and the rest of the brothers. Running these hotels and doing a wonderful job.
David Johnson, you know.
Yes, all of them.
A whole lot of things happened.
Yes.
You know, Betty Bethel,
exactly.
A whole lot of things happened.
We need to get back to the glory days by having men and women.
But what
I'm
saying to you is we got to get, and we have to start getting back there. The government has a hand in taking the steps along with the Port Authority. See, the Port Authority is still there.
Yeah,
as long as it's there, exactly. As long as it's there, we got to work together.
Yes,
and I think that's the problem.
And I don't think the government wants to force the Grand Bahama Authority to sell. I think they want each party. The government has lived up to its obligation. The Grand Bahama Port Authority has an obligation that they have to live up to. Let's reach an harmonious point where both of us can sit down as men and women on behalf of the Bahamian people, on behalf of the shareholders of the Port Authority, and get it done. I would like to see other ports, you know, Obi, my good friend who passed, God bless him, we had a bill in Parliament that we passed for West End Grand Bahama to make that a free port. You know, it's big enough, and there's little or no activity in the other part of Grand Bahama. I think when the team is put together,
you're talking about East Grand Bahama.
Yeah, it must look at all of Grand Bahama, not just Freeport, because those other islands, for example, up in West End, we were supposed to put a dog there to facilitate. You know, Grand Bahama is big enough to accompany any type of investment on that island, and the people deserve better than they've gotten. Hurricane damaged them, I mean, unceasingly. But God is good, and they're on the way back. And now it's time for us to harmonize our efforts as a government and as a private entity on behalf of the people of our country to make it better.
So you're suggesting that the government should have its people sit around the table with the Port Authority,
yes,
and work towards some kind of a compromise,
and just having a ministry there,
some kind of a middle ground situation.
And just having a ministry is not enough. The Prime Minister and the senior members of Cabinet should have quarterly meetings with the Grand Bahama Port Authority, with a team that they would have chosen, to say, how do we work on it? Let them see what we're doing, and no problem, let's see what they're doing in Grand Bahama.
Right, we're talking about a middle ground whereby there's an agreement for the Port Authority to have continuity of assisting with the development of East End and West Grand Bahama.
All the Grand Bahama.
And the government, of course, at that time, we're working together, so you ease the pressure, you ease the tension. Ease the tension.
And what benefits accrue to the people in Freeport should accrue to the people in the other areas of this island called Grand Bahama. The exclusivity of just having Freeport there, as this entity everybody clamor to. What about the rest of the people? All of us deserve the same shot in life.
Leslie, as we close Grand Bahama today, let's just touch again on the ongoing situation with the energy, electricity bill 2024, and what that means, and of course the litigation with the arbitration and the possible litigation with the GBPC and the government, because I think that is a case in court at the moment. My concern is that the litigation, the different aspects of the litigation, will take away from us working together.
I haven't really read the act as they just passed it yesterday. I haven't had a chance to go through it. I see a lot of people are commenting on it, and also the LNG bill that they have just passed. Again, it is so important that both parties sit, respect, and appreciate that the government rule is on behalf of the people of the Bahamas. The Port Authority rule is on behalf of their shareholders and the people not only of Freeport, because they are stationed on an island called Grand Bahama. We can tandem with all of the other communities that make Grand Bahama what it is today. The opportunities in other areas of Grand Bahama besides Freeport itself. And the Port Authority and the government should be working in tandem again to say, listen, you can go here, you can go there. Because there's enough entities out there that I believe would be willing to invest in the Bahamas and a place called Grand Bahama to benefit all of us. And that's what I'd like to see before I leave this place.
Leslie, should this fees issue have come to arbitration?
I think because
the
government waited for a year and the Grand Bahama Port Authority never answered them back formally. So if I send you a proposal and say this is what the independent parties have discovered, and you don't answer me, what do you expect me to do?
But my understanding was there was ongoing communication.
That's not.
I also understand that $250 million were offered to the government to satisfy the fees.
This is the first time we're hearing
this is what I understand.
Again, these things need to be brought to the public attention. And if that's an offer, maybe the offer should be considered and say, you know, you had some severe losses over the years. The economy has turned sour.
Exactly.
You had 2 hurricanes that wrecked the community. Let us take those into consideration and let us reach a point where we can sit and discuss and work it out. I have had discussions with some people at the Port Authority. And my view was that if you have a problem with the government, you have a lot of land that the government is always looking to build houses for the indigenous Bahamians. Perhaps you can trade off some of what, if you talk about the 250, my first thing would be good. Give me the 250, give me some land to put up some subdivisions with your assistance to provide the infrastructure to enable us to build some new residences in Freeport and outside of Freeport for the Bahamian people. That's trade off.
Leslie, a final message to the government and the stakeholders at the Grand Bahama Port Authority. A final message.
I just think, listen, we all Bahamians. There's only one country that we're from. That's called the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that incorporates the Freeport Port Authority and the rest of Grand Bahama. We must work in tandem with each other as a people, we must have one shared goal, one responsibility to work for and on behalf of the people that we represent. The Grand Bahama Port, we represent their shareholders, and they represent the Bahamian people that lives in Freeport. The government has a responsibility to see to it that this matter is resolved peacefully and in harmony for the people of Grand Bahama and for the Bahamian people at large, because whatever accrued to the Port Authority, some of that money is going to be invested in our treasury to enable the government to defray the expenses of running a country called the Bahamas. That is my hope. And my hope that the government would see the benefits of putting the proper team together to make this happen. That is my major complaint. You got rookies out there who don't know what the hell they're doing, making these decisions that adversely affect people's lives. Be conscious of that and do the right thing. And there's never a wrong time to do the right thing.
Leslie, thank you so much. I know you've got a whole lot more to say on this matter, and hopefully we'll sit again on this show to talk about it. This has been Grand Bahama Today with your host, Fred Sturp. Good evening.